A fan-favorite Star Trek series is climbing the streaming charts for a very specific reason. In the constantly shifting world of streaming television, few franchises have demonstrated the staying power of Star Trek. Decades after the original voyages of the USS Enterprise first aired, new viewers and longtime fans alike continue to rediscover the franchise's many shows. Recently, one beloved installment, Star Trek: Deep Space Nine, has begun climbing streaming charts again. While the Star Trek universe has enjoyed a steady revival thanks to modern series like Star Trek: Strange New Worlds and Star Trek: Discovery, the renewed success of Deep Space Nine isn't simply nostalgia. Instead, it's happening for a very specific reason. Modern audiences are finally catching up to just how ahead of its time the series really was. The show that once felt different from Star Trek. When Deep Space Nine premiered in 1993, it immediately stood apart from its predecessor, Star Trek: The Next Generation. Rather than exploring strange new worlds every week, the series took place mostly on a single space station near the planet Bajor. At the center of the story was Commander, later Captain, Benjamin Sisko, played by Avery Brooks. Unlike the diplomatic calm of Jean-Luc Picard, Sisko was a more complicated leader, passionate, occasionally ruthless, and deeply connected to the political struggles around him. This shift initially divided fans. Some viewers loved the deeper political storytelling, while others missed the exploratory format that defined earlier Star Trek. But in hindsight, that very difference is what makes the show feel surprisingly modern today. Serialization before it was trendy. One major reason Deep Space Nine is trending again is its storytelling structure. In the 1990s, most television shows were episodic. Episodes had self-contained plots that reset by the next week. But Deep Space Nine slowly built long-running story arcs, something that would later become the standard for streaming-era TV. The series' most ambitious storyline involved the Dominion War, a massive interstellar conflict that unfolded across multiple seasons. Instead of isolated adventures, characters evolved, alliances shifted, and the stakes kept rising. For modern audiences accustomed to serialized storytelling from shows like Game of Thrones or The Expanse, Deep Space Nine feels surprisingly contemporary. What once seemed unusual now feels perfectly in line with today's prestige television. Characters with more moral complexity. Another factor driving the show's streaming resurgence is its characters. Earlier Star Trek series often portrayed the Federation as an almost flawless utopia. But Deep Space Nine dared to ask uncomfortable questions about that idealism. Captain Sisko, for example, famously bends Starfleet principles in the episode In the Pale Moonlight, one of the franchise's most celebrated hours. Meanwhile, characters like Elim Garak and Quark brought shades of moral ambiguity rarely seen in earlier entries. Even the show's antagonists were layered. The cold, calculating Cardassian leader Gul Dukat became one of the most fascinating villains in Star Trek history. Not simply evil, but dangerously charismatic. Today's audiences often prefer morally complex storytelling, which helps explain why viewers revisiting the franchise are gravitating toward Deep Space Nine. The influence of modern Star Trek. Ironically, modern Star Trek series are also contributing to Deep Space Nine's rise in streaming popularity. Shows like Star Trek, Picard and Star Trek: Lower Decks frequently reference characters, events, and locations introduced in Deep Space Nine. For newer fans exploring the expanded universe, that naturally leads them back to the source. Even actors associated with the series continue to keep it in the spotlight. For instance, Cirroc Lofton, who played Jake Sisko, regularly shares stories and reflections about the show, while the legacy of Avery Brooks's performance as Benjamin Sisko remains a major talking point among fans.